Hey, welcome back to Dudes on Switch. We currently have our first match with Green White Black Maverick, so we'll see how it goes. I would love to be on the play. We are not on the play. Playing against Cesta. This hand is pretty good. We don't have a green source though, so that's a big stuff around. We are on the draw, so we do have the pretty high probability of drawing a green source, but I'd probably rather not rely on that. We do have a turn 2 play in Port, and if we do draw a green source, we have a pretty huge upside, but I don't think this is a hand that I would keep in a competitive paper tournament, so I think I am going to mulligan this hand. Which is pretty rough, because with one green source, it's a great hand. We have a great turn 1. Turn 2, we have if we draw a green source, we can go for Dryad Arbor straight up, which means turn 2 we would have an open source for Scavenging Ooze or an open source for Qasali Pridemage, if it mattered. I'm kind of convincing myself to keep this hand, but I definitely don't like the idea of just drawing into creatures and not hitting that green source, so I'm going to mulligan this. Again, not where we want to be. Just the one land and not a green source. We would be going to 5, so there is a little bit of thought behind keeping this, but I'd rather keep a 5 that actually had a green source, of course. So this hand is actually great. We're going to keep this, and we're going to bottom the Gaia's Cradle and the Wasteland. I think because the Wasteland can be found with the Knight, and I want to have these two basics to cast these two spells in case the Noble dies. So let's bottom the Wasteland and see how we go. Not too sure what my opponent's on, but it will be interesting. Blue Delta. This hand is pretty bad against Rug, mainly because of the 1 CMC spells, and also this Knight's going to take a little bit of time to become a little bit bigger than just a 2/2. But a fetch for Island into Preordain kind of gives me the feel that this is some sort of combo deck like Sneak and Show, but could very much just be another Ren deck that is also running Astrolabe. It's always interesting as well as a streamer to play games without having a chat. It's definitely a lot more soothing, but it's just different to play. Turn 1 Noble and pass. Depending on my opponent's next turn, Sylvan Library is still a pretty great play. Ponder, okay. So let's actually open up the game log and see what our opponent's doing. So with the Preordain, they put 1 card on the bottom, 1 card on top. They of course drew that card for turn, they drew an Unknown, and now they're playing Ponder. I do like 6ing through my opponent's turns, but if I was on a blue deck, I probably wouldn't. I'd be a little bit more patient, because it can signify that you don't have Force of Will in hand, which sometimes you just want to act like you do. I mean, it can win games as well. So a pretty big Ponder for my opponent. It makes me feel like they don't have a fetch land, because if they had a fetch land, they might have fetched pre-Ponder, but they didn't. Interesting. If this is for a red source, Underground Sea, okay. This looks like a Thoughtseize. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I think Storm is definitely my number one thought right now. Turn 1 Preordain, turn 2 Ponder Thoughtseize definitely seems like that sort of deck. Qasali. I think here Sylvan Library is just the best play. I could play Qasali and try to get them with some sort of LED play where they play the LED first and then try to cast like a sorcery speed spell, and then I can pop the LED, but I think here it's just a Sylvan Library play. Try to dig for something like Green Sun Zenith for Gaddock Teeg or go for Thalia or Sanctum Prelate. It just seems like if we do have another turn, then Sylvan Library is going to be my best out rather than just applying damage through Pridemage. The other upside of this play is that it leaves Pridemage as a blank and an unknown for my opponent, so if they are going to be worried about something, they might want to Thoughtseize first again. However, being tapped out, I think they probably know that it's not going to really be something that's going to matter if they try to go off this turn. Shout out to Pat, who got me this hat. Very cool. It's a Maverick hat, which is a brand of paint, I believe. So huge thank you to Pat. Always looking out for me. When my opponent has a turn like this, where they're obviously just thinking, it definitely feels like they have it, and they're just trying to figure out the right, sort of just the sequencing of the deck and how they can use that. So in the meantime, I'll definitely give a little plug to the Green Sun Zenith, which is a website dedicated to Legacy Maverick. I just put out an article on sort of what's happened in the past month. I call it the Maverick Monthly. And it really just is a conglomerate of all the content that's come out over the past month across Green White Maverick, Green White Black Maverick, Punishing Maverick, and any sort of spice lists. Go over some of the deck choices, pull them apart, look at some of the cool one-offs in the deck, some of the sideboard options and what people are going for. Yeah, it's pretty fun to put together. It's a good read, I hope. So if you do have a little bit of an inkling for legacy content, definitely check out the Green Sun Zenith, because it's definitely, I don't think it's just for Maverick players, which is nice. It's got a bit of everything for everyone, I hope. I actually, I'm also on Twitter, at Dukes on Twitch on Twitter, and I had a What's the Play against Storm from the challenge. So if you like those kind of puzzles, then definitely check out my Twitter and have a look at that, because there were some pretty awesome games against Storm and some pretty hard players. So just a pass from my opponent, which is really interesting. Scryb Ranger doesn't do a whole lot. It does give us extra mana with Noble Hierarch and the... Well, that's pretty rough. That's sort of a hand of nothing. So I'm pretty happy just to... So I don't want to go down too low. It's a case of what are we doing here? So I think we're doing Scryb Ranger for 2 mana, and then tap the Noble Hierarch for mana, untap it, return the Forest, and then tap it for mana, so we can probably cast another Reliquary this turn as well. So that gives us a shuffle at the beginning of our turn with the Knight, if we get another turn, so I can actually shuffle these two away, which I'm pretty happy to do. So let's do that. Let's just put on top. Let's go Scryb Ranger. Tap for white. Untap that, return the Forest. Play the Forest. Play the Knight. And then we just pass. Unfortunately, but didn't really get too much of a great top with that library. So playing very fair Magic here, and that's just an element of Maverick. I mean, you have to take the bad beats with the good beats. Sometimes you just draw the wrong half of the deck against a deck that obviously is playing a little bit more unfair. But you know, we're not playing Ponders, we're not playing Brainstorm, so you know, you take that risk when you play a deck like this. We're just gonna 6 here. We can't do anything else. Sideboard's gonna be interesting. We have Surgicals, Thoughtseizers. I'm always interested if we bring in Interesting. It looks like they're going for a long game because they don't actually have a tutor yet for this Past in Flames. So they got to find a tutor. I guess they can crack the LEDs, put the tutor in the bin, and then cast from the graveyard, but it's going to be an interesting turn. They haven't played a land for turn. They did double bottom with the Preordain as well, so I mean, I'd love to see a fizzle here, but Storm usually has it when they go off. What are they doing with Ponder? I'd love to see a shuffle with the Ponder, let's be honest. They chose not to shuffle. Okay. Well, that's kind of give away that they obviously drew into a pretty nice card. Another Ponder. Interesting. Maybe just to get the Storm count up? And they crack for black. Tutor for Tendrils. Hold priority with... or just crack LED for black. Tendrils goes to the bin. They can then ritual into Tendrils. So here's my opponent's bin. Cracking the diamond for 3 blue. There's the black. There's the ritual. There's the tutor. And there's Tendrils, okay. So boarding's going to be interesting. I like the 4 Thoughtseize. I like the Surgicals, of course. I don't mind the chokes on the play. And I don't mind 1 Engineer. Questing Beast can come out. The 4 Swords can come out. I don't mind taking out the Ramunap and 3 of the Knights and just going with this. I think everything else has its place. This protects our creatures like Thalia, Gaddock Teeg, and Sanctum Prelate from cards like Echoing Truth, Chain of Vapor, Abrupt Decay if they play it. Sylvan Library is really good at being aggressive with and actually finding these. Scryb Ranger's okay, doesn't really do too much. It allows us to actually keep aggressive hands with 1 mana and a Dork and actually get multiple sort of usages of mana off them. I think this is fine. I could bring in the second Plague Engineer if I really wanted to, but usually decks don't go for Empty the Warrens against Maverick post-board. But I mean, if it's an out for my opponent. But usually when they can do it, they can just Tendrils me anyway, so let's just see how this goes. Definitely not a matchup that I'm too happy with playing against, but we do have the tools to beat it. Especially with sort of turn 1 interaction through Thoughtseize and then following it up with a creature like Thalia or Gaddock Teeg. Opponent obviously having a pretty good think about their sideboard and what they want to bring in. We would love to play first. This hand's fine. We'll keep this. I wonder if I just want to go Plains Go. The one thing about Plains is that I can't get it off the field once it's on the field. At least if I Verdant Catacombs and then go and get something like a Savannah, I can at least wasteland it down the track if I want to play around Massacre without Teeg on the field. I don't mind turn 1 Zenith because we don't have another Gaddock Teeg and it allows us to Zenith for Dryad Arbor and then next turn play Thalia, and if they've actually played a dual land we can wasteland it. So I think that's going to be the go. And I think to get all my mana colors online, we're going to go for a Bayou here. My opponent's also going to 6. So we'll get a Bayou and Green Suns for Dryad Arbor. Now, unless my opponent has the nuts, I'm feeling pretty good about this. But one thing we didn't do is get another white source. So we can't actually cast Thalia and Wasteland next turn, which is definitely a screw up on my part. Thankfully, our opponent went for a snow-covered island, but it's not great. I guess we can attack for 1 here. We can play Thalia and then attack for 1. I like playing Thalia over Gaddock Teeg, just to slow them down these early turns. They have already mulliganed. With this preordain, we'll see what they do, but it could definitely have an influence on how we want to proceed with the next turn. I definitely feel better on the draw, let's be honest. Sorry, on the play. On the play. That was close. Big preordain. 2 cards on top of their library. Okay. Luckily, we get another turn. That's always nice to see. Knight of Autumn. Okay. Let's go for Thalia first. And then attack with Dryad Arbor. Put a Delta. Okay. Giver of Runes. We do currently only have 1 source of white mana, so we can't cast both Giver of Runes on one of these creatures right now. I'm going to cast Teeg first. And then attack for 3. Play the Wasteland and pass. So we have a 3-turn clock, which is really nice. Something like a Chain of Vapor here would be pretty interesting for my opponent. That's another way we can actually return this Plains, is if we see a Chain of Vapor on something. It's going to be a Brainstorm. Okay. Luckily for us, they've already fetched, so they'll have to draw a card off the top of this. Just a pass from my opponent. Okay. Thoughtseize would be a pretty nice draw. Just a knight. So still with just the one planes? I actually don't mind attacking just for 4 here. Holding back the ability to actually Abrupt Decay in their turn, but also play Giver of Runes this turn. They're going to fetch first, so obviously they have something, maybe an Abrupt Decay. Decay on Thalia. That's going to be fine. Can't do anything there. We can at least play Giver. And then waste them off this Bayou. And also hold up Abrupt Decay, so not the worst turn. The nice thing about the Decay on Thalia for us is as well is that we have multiple Thalias, and of course with one in play the rest are kind of dead, but now the rest are actually online for draws, which is nice. Giver is good. Okay. Green Suns. We can't cast it because of the Teeg, so let's just go straight to combat. I feel like Knight's fine here. It's gonna be a 4/4 as well. Looks like just a pass back. Okay. Scrubland. Is there any reason not to play this land? I don't believe so. So I could attack for 7 here, or I could attack for 2. Actually, I can just attack for 3 and hold back the knight to wasteland my opponent. Gonna sack the forest, get a wasteland, and go after their trop. Wow, okay. Now we have just a lethal knight, which is really nice. And luckily we get there in game 2, so game 3 will be interesting. I'm not sure if the chokes are worth it on the draw. I actually really like Collector Ouphe. I think that's a really big misplay to not bring this in. So I apologize for that. Let's drop a choke and just bring in the Ouphe. This should be fine. I think people underestimate how much interaction there is with a deck like Storm. I think sometimes it's a really fun deck to play against, especially when you both have a lot of... when a game goes longer and you have a lot of interaction points. I really like how in the recent Eternal Glory podcast, Jarvis was it Eternal Glory? Everyday Eternal, or it was one of those. Jarvis stated how he likes to think of games as telling stories and how you can learn a lot about what your opponent does, and from that you can actually pull together what they might have in hand or what their sort of strategy is at that moment in time, which is a really cool way to look at different games of Magic. But yeah, the Ouphe is definitely a card I bring in. It hits Lotus Petal, it hits Lion's Eye Diamond, and it doesn't affect us in any way. So it's just another 2-mana 2/2 bear. It's a great addition to the deck post board. This hand is really reliant on the Teeg. Surgical is okay, but I don't know if that's enough. I feel like we need a little bit more. The Cradle's pretty much dead, so this is pretty much a 6. Would I keep this 6? So they get 2 turns before the Gaddock Teeg hits the field, which they can most likely hold up something like Decay or some sort of bounce spell. So I think we really need to mulligan a little bit more aggressively towards at least a turn 1 play, either Interaction in Thoughtseize or something like a Noble Hierarch. So we're going to mulligan this. And this hand's actually a little bit better. We have a turn 1 Sylvan Safekeeper and then a turn 2 Thalia with protection. The double Surgical is probably overkill, but I'm going to keep this. We're going to bottom a Surgical. Really interesting thing about this hand as well is that we have a white source that isn't a plains. Just an island for my opponent, so no Thoughtseize, which is nice. It's definitely a reason why I like the Mox Diamond decks right now. The Depths decks, the Loam decks. Even sort of the... Yeah, just the decks that allow you to play a turn 1 creature on turn 1 is really nice. A turn 2 creature. A 2 CMC creature on turn 1. Apologies, it is 11:37. What does this Ponder do? It's a big Ponder. Pretty interesting. I'm recording this and my opponent has 6 minutes. I have 6 minutes on my opponent, which is pretty nuts. A lot of thought process going into their sideboarding, their ponders, their keeps, which is great. I mean, you know, Storm is a fast deck, but you can definitely take your time with it as well. It's not something you have to really rush at, which I think some people do. They chose not to shuffle. Okay. Well, I can shuffle it if I want. Port. Do I want to shuffle their library? I get the Surgical Ponder, which isn't the biggest win, but I could also hit Delta if I really wanted to. They're most likely both 4-ofs in the deck. My opponent may have split the fetch lands 2/2/2/2. I don't mind getting a shuffle. It's not a great play, but this will be interesting. Especially to see what they have in hand. LED pedal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so a lot of mana, Past in Flames, but no payoff. So let's hope they don't draw into a payoff. What do they have in here? Echoing Truth, Chain of Vapors, Abrupt Decays, Massacre. Okay. I hate how we don't get to see the cards. It's not kept revealed. Oh, we will definitely play the Sylvan Safekeeper. And then pass back. The fetch straight away is always a bad sign. Lotus Petal, LED, Cabal Ritual, Dark Ritual, Past in Flames. Looks like they're going for it. Oh, Thoughtseize, okay. That's not too bad. The Thalia is a good hit, but... Oof. Oof is so good here. Especially knowing their hand. This turns off the Lotus Petal and the LED. We also don't have a plains on the field, which is really nice. I think that Ouphe just bought a whole heap of time against this deck, which is really nice. I mean, you hope, right? Decay. Probably not as good right now. One thing I probably should have done there is actually cast a Sylvan Library main phase 1, because my opponent could have made me sack a land to this Collector Ouphe, and maybe I choose the Nurturing Peatland for some reason. Nurturing Peatland, sorry. Brainstorm's fine. We actually don't have the ability to cast this Abrupt Decay yet. The Sylvan Library represents, you know, a Green Sun Zenith would be great because we have the mana to also go for Gaddock Teeg, which would be pretty close to lights out, especially with protection in Sylvan Library and Karakas, although we would be tapped out. If we sack a land, I think it's the port. I don't want to get taken off lands, right? Off colors right now. I'd rather give away the port as a sacrifice. But hey, if you are a fan of Rishadan Port, you can definitely read. I did a breakdown, or a kind of primer on Port a few years back. How to use it against different decks in the format. How to use it as a card, defensively, aggressively. You can find that on the Green Sun Zenith. I believe it's actually linked in the sort of intro on the homepage. I'd love to get this game. It's always nice to start a league on a win, but also against an unfair deck, it is nice to win on a fair deck. It feels like you've found the right components to actually put together a bit of a lock. But it is going to be tough. Big brainstorm here from my opponent. Probably close this for now. Safekeeper actually a great way as well to play around Massacre. If you just have Thalia, you can sack your planes, so they can't actually cast Massacre for free or for 1 for her attacks. So Safekeeper definitely has advantages in this matchup over Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes, of course. Also, you technically have more in the deck than a playset of Giver or Mother because of Green Sun Zenith. Our opponent having a pretty good think about this brainstorm here. Maybe trying to find a way to just use the artifacts in hand as Storm and go off with rituals. but it is going to be tough. That song always finishes in a really weird spot. Cesta. They do have a fetch, so if they have another turn, they do have the ability to put 2 cards back that I don't like Lotus Petal and LED, and then of course start over the following turn. Okay. I mean, rituals into even like a small empty is pretty good. It means we can't really attack, especially with Collector Ouphe only being a 2/2. So these big pauses are most likely just my opponent really making sure they have their numbers correct. Because if they are wanting to go off without using their mana from their artifacts, it definitely isn't a straightforward case of just, you know, counting your storm, counting your mana. It looks like they might be giving me another turn, which is really nice. Or at least going to their second main, having another think. Can they go off this turn? Thoughtseize. Okay. They did go down to 10 for that. A Wasteland would be nice. Oh, there's Green Suns, wow. A Wasteland would be nice as well. We can play this Dryad Arbor, so I don't mind putting this back and then paying for this. It means we can also just hold up Karakas if that's needed. No, it doesn't. I think we don't care about Dryad Arbor. Let's go for Teeg. Attack for 3. Putting our opponent down to 7. If we get another turn, we also get another look at Sylvan Library because the Green Sun's are shuffled away at the top of our deck. So Teeg being pretty relentless here, stopping Empty the Warrens, Past in Flames, Tendrils, Massacre. Sylvan Library doing a great job as well. Giving Shroud as well, so I have played against Storm players who bring in Karakas against me, which is really rough. What do we get? Giver. Verdant Knight. What do we want here? Probably the fetch land. The Giver's nice though. Let's go to attacks first. Put him down to 1. Turns off all fetch lands, which is really nice. Play Giver. Pass back, tapping down there. Underground Sea in their upkeep. I want to try and keep him off black. So looking pretty good here. And we get there in game 1, which is really nice. So unfortunate for my opponent. You know, you got to feel for them, but really nice to get this off to a win at the start. Looking forward to match 2. Thanks for watching.